There she is. So welcome everybody. My name is Carmen Lansdowne, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director at First United Church Community Ministry Society and First United Church Social Housing Society. And I want to introduce my colleagues. I have with me today Amanda Burrows, who is our Director of Development, and the other Amanda Pellerine, who is our Community Volunteer Income Tax Program Coordinator. We're so thrilled that you're here with us this morning. This is our second installment of Toast Talks. You'll see Amanda Burrows and I are wearing our black t-shirts this morning. So the World Council of Churches has started a global ecumenical movement called Thursdays in Black towards a world without rape and violence. Many countries in the world, including Canada and the US, continue to face really unacceptable levels of physical and sexual violence against women. And it's been a long-standing concern of the World Council of Churches. And so in the downtown east side, of course, we see many people who have been the victims of sexual violence. And so we got a grant from the West Van United Church a couple of years ago to make these black t-shirts so we could participate in Thursdays in Black. And so that's what we are doing this morning. And it's also not unconnected to the shocking news yesterday out of Saskatchewan and this morning, the confirmation that 715 additional bodies of Indigenous children were found at the residential school in Saskatchewan. And of course, as we know, we could also, and many of you are wearing your orange shirts today, and we really appreciate that solidarity as well. And of course, many of those children were also victims of sexual violence. And so it's a deeply sad and troubling time for us to be grappling with the confirmation of the findings of these bodies. And so thank you for those of you who are wearing your orange t-shirts. And if you're involved with the United Church of Canada and you also knew about Thursdays in Black and you're wearing a black t-shirt, thank you for that as well. So this is, as I said, the second installment of Toast Talks. And there are a series of information sessions where our team will offer updates about First United, information about our work to our communities that support us. And we plan on having 3 of these per year, and they're live sessions that will go along with the release of our annual report in our AGM, our 2 newsletters, a summer and a winter edition. And so this is the summer edition of Toast Talks. And the reason why we've called Toast Talks is because, of course, during the pandemic, so many people took on new hobbies, and baking sourdough was one of them. And so there's all kinds of bread puns. You can like leave little breadcrumbs. You can, make a toast. And so we liked that idea the last time that we did this. And so that name has stuck. And so we will have 3 times a year Toast Talks, and we're really glad you're here with us today. So I know a lot of you are interested in the topic that we are talking about today, which is our redevelopment. And I'm going to spend about 25 minutes or so talking about our future. And then we also wanted to highlight one of our flagship programs, which is the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program. And then we're going to leave room for questions at the end. Amanda has your mic on mute, and if you could keep it on mute, you can feel free to write questions in the chat and we'll keep track of them so we can answer them at the end. But in order for us to end on time at 9:45, we'll ask you to stay on mute. Oh, Amanda, I skipped ahead of myself and said, why are we calling these Toast Talks? So I've already done that. But our question to you today is an icebreaker. We've got too many people on the call to unmute to say it, but if you just wanted to put it into the chat, what are you most looking forward to doing now that you can? For me, the thing I'm most looking forward to is taking my family to the Van Gogh exhibit. So we have tickets for July 17th, and I'm really excited to be doing something that is unique and exciting and has generated a lot of buzz, and introducing my son for sure to Van Gogh, and my daughter, who's 8, is a very accomplished artist, and I'm pretty sure she already knows about Van Gogh, but it'll be a new experience for her outside of her art classes. So very excited about that. It's been quite the journey, and all mixed up on my slides here. Okay, sorry about that. So for those of you who don't know, we are redeveloping our site at the church at 320 East Hastings into an 11-story building. So the first 4 floors will be operated by First United Church and will offer safe and inclusive community amenities with 3 times more space for services and programming that reflect the needs and interests of the community. We are also partnering with Luma Native Housing Society, who will offer safe, secure homes for Indigenous people in a supportive and caring environment in the upper 7 floors. It's been a really long time. Those of you who have been involved with First for a long time know this is not our first kick at the can. We've had at least 2 or 3 other attempts at planning for a redevelopment of this site, and we're so excited to share with you that we're beginning to decommission and demolish the building early this fall, and we plan to be done construction by late 2023 or early 2024. It's happening, and so many of you know how long it took us to get here. But why are we rebuilding our site? Since 1885, First United has truly been a sanctuary within our community. We have always sought a just society by nurturing each person's spirit through community services, housing, advocacy, and our various forms of ministry in the downtown east side. And we're constantly guided and led by our vision of a neighborhood where every person's worth is celebrated and all people thrive. But to make this vision a reality, we have to replace our aging facilities, which fall so far short of our current and especially our future needs. In our over 135-year history, we have always evolved to meet our community's needs. That's one of the things I love about First United. We have this legacy of very innovative response to the needs of the community around us. But those needs have now grown beyond what our space can safely support. Even through the pandemic, we continue to serve hundreds of people each week while struggling against the limits to our building. So it's really created an urgency to redevelop 320 East Hastings with a purpose-built facility that will provide more responsive services for healing, direct needs, and social connection. And why that matters to us is we believe with every ounce of our being that people deserve the dignity and care that our building will provide, that will contribute to a revitalization of the corner of Hastings and Gore without gentrification. And it's really a community-led project that centers reconciliation and healing. So it's not only made for the community, but it's also being deeply informed by the community. And it is our community that drives us. As you know, the downtown east side is a community of deep strength and deep struggle. As you may know, many people here experience trauma, poverty, homelessness, and addiction. As we are guided by our community, we've also been incredibly thoughtful and have had extensive community consultations and engagement over the course of several years with our community members we serve and our colleagues in the neighborhood with other agencies. We did a sensitive listening exercise in 2017 where we interviewed nearly 100 individuals and then also had a focus group with an additional 25 folks with one of our partner organizations, and 7 key themes emerged from that sensitive listening interviews. In order of the importance in terms of what the community said they needed, they were housing, food services, shelter, the overdose crisis, spiritual needs, programming, day programming, and legal advocacy. And those are the things that the community identified that First United was best placed to continue or to take on in addressing in terms of their needs in their daily lives. And as I mentioned, many of you are not aware that, or many of you are aware this is not our first attempt, and we stand on the shoulders of so many folks who worked at this at different times. I think that it's just we have the right project at the right time with the right levels of support. The fact that we have 3 levels of government who are committed to increasing safe, affordable homes for the most marginalized in our society is really a testament to the fact that this needs to happen. And so we're really thrilled to be participating in that. And we raise our hands and say thank you to all of the people who have worked on various iterations of this project over the last 10 to 15 years. So we have been very thoughtful in our planning. And as I said, this has been a long time coming. Finding a solution for the new building has been an incredibly thoughtful process. And the project also meets or exceeds all of the requirements of the guidelines of core plans and regulations for the downtown east side. And so in this slide, you can see all of the different reports and zoning bylaws and city plans that we had to take into account in addition to the things that the community said that they wanted from us. So this is about the guidelines and compliance. We also had to go through a regulatory process. We're doing our project within the existing zoning under the new Downtown Eastside District community plan, but we did have to go through the Urban Design Panel, the Vancouver Heritage Commission, and the City of Vancouver Development Permitting Board, where I'm thrilled to say we received unanimous support at every step. And if you follow Vancouver development processes at all, that is a very unique thing. So it's really another indication to us that this is the right project at the right time. I'm thrilled to say that we're on track to get our development and demolition permits by the end of summer. So we can start that demolition project in late September, early October, and we can finalize the building permit application over the fall and winter months, because it's going to take about 5 to 6 months for demolition to be completed. For decades, we found creative ways to provide vital services by adapting to our facilities. And can you just imagine the level of care and connection we can offer in a larger purpose-built facility that's more suited to our work and the needs of our community and 3 times the size? So within the first 4 floors that First United will be operating, we'll continue to offer our major flagship programs, which you can see on the left-hand side under the blue banner. We predict this number will increase tremendously with the expanded facilities, not only because we'll have triple the square footage for our programming space, but also because we're building this building to be sacred and part of the church and beautiful. And we really hope that it's a place that the community will want to be. And it's also being designed to be culturally accessible to people from diverse backgrounds. We're also really excited as part of the outcomes of those community consultations to introduce some new programs like a computer lab and a dedicated day sleeping space and more private and safe spaces for one-on-one conversations like counseling, pastoral care. You know, if you've been to First United, you know our only publicly accessible spaces are the sanctuary space that's become the drop-in, the dining hall, and the chapel. And so if somebody is in some kind of crisis or just wants to have a confidential conversation, we have to do that in a space that is designed to be safe for both the community and our staff, but also can provide the privacy that they need and deserve. And so we've built that into parts of the design of the new building. And we're really thrilled to offer a beautiful courtyard rooftop deck on the 2nd floor. So as you know, there's not really any places for the community where they're welcomed to gather in the downtown side outside. And so we've developed a programmed rooftop deck where people can have access to the outdoors. We can have sacred fires and smudging out there. There will be a medicine garden, and we're really excited to be able to offer that amenity to the community. So our programs are committed to ensuring our community members and all of the people that we serve find community connection and care at First United. So as I mentioned, construction is starting this year with the demolition of the building. And while construction is going to take a few years to complete, we're going to continue to provide the services that our neighbors in the Downtown Eastside rely on to ensure that community members continue to have access to all of our minimal barrier direct services. We're relocating all of our programs to satellite locations throughout the neighborhood during this transition. And so you can see that on this map. Keeping our programs open and located in the Downtown Eastside has been critical to moving our redevelopment forward. We're also incredibly excited to be launching an innovative new approach to our meal program, serving hot, nutritious meals in our transition years and beyond through the First United Food Truck Program. So our commercial kitchen is moving to a space at 620 Clark Drive where meals will be prepped and sometimes prepared. They'll then be distributed via our new mobile food truck fleet, including a mini cargo van and a regular cargo van and a fully equipped kitchen in a real food truck. And so that mobile fleet will ensure that the over 200 meals we provide each day continue to reach those in need. And over the coming months, we'll be ensuring that our staff and new satellite locations are equipped to provide our core services without interruption and keeping you and our broader community of supporters up to date about our plans as an organization and as a community. So just a moment of gratitude. Thank you to everybody who has helped us to get here. We're beyond excited. and we're truly overwhelmed. We aren't just building a new building, we're building a place where people can connect and heal, and reconciliation is essential to that. Some of you may know that our shelter will not be returning to 320 East Hastings at the end of construction. Our board, along with the leadership team, made a thoughtful decision that we should really be maximizing our new redevelopment to dedicate every amount of square footage available to permanent affordable housing to respond to the critical need for housing that is identified by the community. It's the #1 need that they have. It's also the reason that we're partnering with another housing provider. We already operate 189 units of low-income housing, 2 buildings in the downtown east side and 1 in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood of Vancouver. And we wanted a partner who is an expert in responding to the needs of their tenants. And 30 to 40% of the downtown east side residents identify as Indigenous, compared to just 2 to 4% of Vancouver's total population. And so we're thrilled to be partnered with Luma Native Housing Society as the operator of our housing, because of this deep racialization of poverty that's disproportionately impacting Indigenous people. With this new building, we're addressing housing as the critical issue that it is, and it is also reconciliation in action by providing Indigenous housing. So I'm sure you have tons of questions, and please know you will hear so much more about how you can get involved with our redevelopment and with FIRST in the coming months. We also can't wait to show you renderings of the new building at our Toast Talks in the fall. As I said, we've left time to answer questions at the end. So if you have questions now, please write them in the chat and we'll come back to them. And we'll try and get to as many as we can. I want to also explain that we always want to highlight our work. And so I'm really excited to introduce my colleague, Amanda Pellerine, who is our Community Volunteer Income Tax Coordinator, to share with us some insights on how her important program works. And then we're going to open it up for questions. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand it over to Amanda.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Pellerine. I am the CVITP Income Tax Coordinator for First United. I have been with First United in several different capacities since 2008. I've done many different jobs, but my kind of the most near and dear to my heart, and the one that I've had the longest, has been running the tax program. The First United tax program has run over, from what we found out yesterday, over 40 years in the downtown east side, and it's a very essential service for our community. We have a partnership with CRA where they offer us free software support, an e-file help desk, and volunteers to be able to help us do our program. Our busiest time of year seems to be obviously tax season. We start at around early February and we close out at the end of May. However, we are a service that does run year round, and we're really proud of that. Obviously, a lot of our community members aren't great with timelines and deadlines, so we're really able to go above and beyond for our community and go 10 years back in taxes. So we've spent a lot of time dealing with and working with different organizations, Atira, Van Coastal Health, we work really closely with social workers, infirm patients, people that need support with something that can give them great benefit. Without doing your taxes yearly, our community, who are all low income, they don't get access to things like the GST benefit. Low income families need to be able to get their child tax benefit to feed their children. Our seniors, GIS, guaranteed income supplement, that's something that your taxes have to be done every year on time to be able to guarantee yourself that credit. So it's a really essential service. The pandemic has obviously thrown a real huge curveball at us, but we're really proud to say that we've been available and able to keep this service running. We've never stopped during the pandemic. It is one of the only programs that we were able to do. Our building team installed a socially distant window at the front of the church. So last year when everything started, we obviously gloved up, masked up, goggled up, and we're able to be able to still provide that service to people at a really critical time, a really scary time for a lot of people. We offer virtual services. If people are afraid to go outside or don't feel safe or comfortable coming to First United, then we're able to still offer that service virtually for them. So it's been really great to still have that service. We work with people that have come out of incarceration for a long time. We work really closely with Salvation Army, so UGM. So we're very well known in the downtown east side. We're very well known in the community, and it's really amazing to have that service. One thing that's been really difficult for us to kind of go through has been the impact of the coronavirus and the CERB benefit. CERB has really negatively impacted a lot of our community members. Obviously, their income is so low being on income assistance. Many of our community members went and were able to access the CERB. Now, unfortunately, that has kind of come back to them, and it's left a lot of our community with very substantial debt with the government. So we're trying to work closely with different advocacy groups, the province, trying to ensure that our people can continue to have the benefits that they need and the income that they need to be able to survive. So it's been really difficult kind of navigating that. Also, with being in this program so long, I've been really blessed, and it's been really wonderful to be able to see our community come back year after year, to be able to trust us essentially with their finances. They almost, look at First United as their individual accountant. We've worked with several different, couples. We do taxes for our housing society. And, one story in particular that's really impactful to me is last year I had a single mom who came to the church that was fleeing abuse. She had no money. She was living in transitional housing, and her ex-husband wouldn't provide her with the tax slips because they're married and they were supposed to be filing together. This made it so she couldn't access GST. She couldn't access child tax benefits. She wasn't able to be accepted to income assistance. So we worked really hard with her to work that situation out with CRA, to explain to the government what was going on with her, and have them give her special access to be able to claim herself. We got her a lot of money for back taxes, and she came back to us and let me know that money was enough to have her move back to the island where her family was, to safety. Now she was able to have a different outlook on life. So, to someone like myself or to others, taxes might not seem like a big deal. A lot of us have to actually, pay the tax man at the end of the year. But for people that are, in addictions, are low income, this service is so essential to them. And we're really, really happy to be able to say now that this program has been fully funded by grants and generous donors in the community that do see how impactful this program is. So we're hoping to be able, with the new building coming, with the redevelopment, we're really hoping to be able to grow this program, to be able to support our community, offer education around finance, education around taxes, around the credits that they might be entitled to but may not be receiving. So, I'm open to answering any of your questions that you might have about the program. But, it's a group effort by our organization down to the SRWs, management, anyone that kind of runs the front line. It's definitely been a group effort for the tax program.
Thanks so much, Amanda. You'll see in our summer newsletter that we knew that the tax program had been running as a program since at least the mid-1980s, but we had Linda Irvin, who many of you know, on the call yesterday, and she said that when she was at First United from 1976 onward, that they were doing taxes with the community. So it's a really long-standing program. And Amanda, can you remind me how much money from the 2019 tax year were you able to put back into the pockets of the community just from our tax returns?
Yes, just, we do thousands of tax returns a year. Obviously, 2020, we don't want to look at those stats because they were not good financially for anyone. But in 2019, we were amazed to see that we got over $233,000 of refunds back into our community. So, I mean, obviously that number just goes to show how impactful our program is and how much money that, we can get for these people. So it's great.
Great, thanks so much. Any questions for Amanda about the tax program? Then I'll go back to a couple of questions about redevelopment afterwards. Jeff. Oh no, Jeff, you're doing the clapping thing. I think they should have made like just the thumbs up and then the hands up, because I always get confused between the clapping and the hands up. All right, so I saw a couple of questions back in the chat. So how will the community help desk and ministry be made accessible to the public? From my experience, the Jackson and Hastings sites are not very walk-in friendly. That question came from Caleb. So it's true, they're not, I mean, there's not really any space that's ideal. And one of our challenges, especially my challenges, because this was on my desk, over the past year and a half has been planning for where our service is going. And of course, planning for that in the middle of a pandemic, when we haven't even been able to have our drop-in open for the last 15 months, has been really challenging. The help desk will be in the corner commercial space at our Bill Hennessy building for the Housing Society at the corner of Hastings and Jackson. It will not have a drop-in, and so it will feel kind of like a postal outlet, where you sort of walk in and there's a service counter, and Amanda and Kristen and other program staff will do tax intake, our community mail program, all of the referrals and things that we would normally expect to have operating out of the help desk. There will not be a place for folks to gather. Finding a space that was appropriate for a community drop-in was really challenging, and we haven't been able to operate the drop-in for the last 15 months. And so we have not made plans for a drop-in outside of the community ministry offices, which are also in the same building, but on the Jackson Avenue side of the building. So we have about 1,000 square foot space where Carnegie Outreach had previously rented from us, and then LUMS, the Lutheran Urban Ministry, was also operating out of that space previously. And so we tend to have between 5 and 15 people that have traditionally participated in our Spirit Focus and Spirit Circle programs and community ministry. And that space is big enough to continue those programs and to do one-on-one pastoral care. We're really thrilled this year that we've, in addition to Dr. Cheryl Bear joining our team as the Director of Community Ministry following the retirement of Jim Hatherley last spring, that we have also added a half-time Indigenous spiritual care chaplain. It's a woman named Lauren Sanders, who is Kickapoo and Potawatomi from the US. She's been working as a chaplain and as part of the CPE training program out of Vancouver General Hospital. Has her MDiv from the US, but a master's in theology in spirituality from the Vancouver School of Theology. And so she and Cheryl will be working out of that office together and doing, continuing to offer spiritual care and pastoral care and culturally accessible programming for the community. It's a really lovely space. We've completely renovated it. And so everything feels new and fresh and restful in that space. We heard really clearly from the community that they wanted space that was meditative and beautiful and quiet. That's not, if you've been to the downtown east side, it's not a quiet place. And so providing just a space for people to be quiet and to sit in silence and to meditate and to pray regardless of their faith tradition or no tradition, is a really important need that we're trying to meet. And so we've prioritized making a small drop-in space for that. Let's see, will there be a shelter space somewhere? Yes, so on that map, I realize it went by quite quickly. There was an indication that the shelter is moving to 467 Alexander Street. So that's just off of Alexander and Jackson Avenue. And we have made a commitment to transition our existing shelter residents out of the church into that space. It's a temporary emergency shelter, so it's not a permanent shelter in the way that the shelter became a permanent part of First United. Of course, our hope is that the city and province continue to partner to address homelessness and to reduce the need for shelters. There are other existing permanent shelters in the downtown east side, and so we hope and our neighbors in the new space hope that that shelter won't be needed in that location forever. We've committed to an initial 3-year transition period to offer that shelter there through our construction period. We will work really hard to get the shelter residents housed. And then we really want to focus on the things that we have done the best over the last 100 years, which is like our ministry programs and our day programs. And so, we'll continue to be in discernment with BC Housing about when is, and the city of Vancouver about when is the right time for First United to stop operating a shelter. But with so many other changes, and change is really hard for the community because they're so often powerless in the decisions about what services they have access to and everything. We felt it was important, rather than just closing the shelter in the new building, that we would continue to hold space for them over the coming 3 years while we prepare for the new building, and then we'll see what happens after that. And of course, we always center the needs of the community, and so things may change. I think the board, may reconsider in 2 years and say, do we want to continue to operate the shelter? Those of you who have been around for a long time know that it was a really rocky start to having a shelter over a decade ago. And so one of the things I'm proud of is I feel like now we've actually developed some expertise in offering a safe, minimal barrier facility for people seeking shelter. And it's a place that a lot of people choose to be. Some people choose not to stay in shelters. Some people, choose not to stay in a faith-based shelter, but our shelter is always at full capacity. And that's because people choose our shelter over some of the other options that they have. So I see another question from Caleb. What will be the capacity of the temporary shelter? Will it be similar? So the shelter prior to COVID, the shelter at First United was 60 beds. We had 40 men's beds and 20 women's beds that were trans inclusive. So you stayed where your gender identity guided you. During COVID, in the very, very early days, I kept saying to BC Housing and to Vancouver Coastal Health, do you want physical distancing or do you want full capacity in the shelter? Because I can't do both. We had congregate living situations in rooms with bunk beds, and there was no way to really guarantee that we could keep people safe and physically distanced at that level of shelter. And for many, it was shocking. It was like months before, and there was no answer. They just kept saying well, we don't know. And all of the public health guidance that was coming from the province was really around, for people who are housed. So, wash your hands often, physically distance, isolate if you're sick. And you can't do that if you're living in a dorm style situation with bunk beds. And so we made the decision very early on to err on the side of public health. We didn't displace anybody from our shelter, but we did let the shelter shrink by attrition. So as people got housed, or some people left the downtown east side and were like, I don't want to be a part of this pandemic and living in this congregate setting. I'll take my chances in Stanley Park. The shelter sort of started to shrink by attrition, and we've generally had between 35 and 40 people over most of the past year. Because the drop-in is closed, some of the men have moved into the drop-in space and are sleeping on the sort of cushy benches that we have, because they would rather sleep in the space with the vaulted ceiling and have more distance between them and other folks. I will also say our shelter residents have been fantastic around, you know, some people need to get reminders from, Amanda also works sometimes in our shelters. So they need to get reminders from Amanda and her colleagues to wash their hands, yes, for the 50th time today. But for the most part, they've been really great. The first time we had staff contract COVID outside of work, I held an emergency meeting with the shelter and informed them that somebody had come to work with COVID, and we were going to go through, you know, disinfecting the building, and you know, there's hands up, like I'll help clean. You know, they were really committed to practicing good public health as best they can. I'm really proud to say we had 4 cases of COVID in our staff and no transmissions at work. And as far as I know, we've had like 1 or 2 cases of COVID in our shelter residents. A couple of folks have been hospitalized, but no transmissions in the shelter. And that's just a real testament to our shelter staff and to the residents for how seriously they took the pandemic. The new shelter is purpose-built, or will be purpose-built. We're hoping for a building permit next week. And I think the drawings show 51 beds. So there'll be 26 women's beds and 25 men's beds. I think we may have to go as low as 48 just once we see how we get the beds put into the space. The beds are also, if you've seen some of the new shelters that have been in the news where they have like a single bed with a little sort of pony wall around it, that's a product called Watch Pods. And our shelter will have those. So there's actually physical barrier between a shelter resident and their neighbor. And there's no bunk beds. And so it's much safer still in the pandemic. And we're really excited about that. So we won't be going back up to the 60 beds, but we will be growing from the number that we have had during the pandemic because it's purpose built during the pandemic. And so that's the number that space can safely support. I don't see any more questions in the chat. Does anybody else have any questions? You can unmute yourselves. We have a theory that the more people are on a Zoom call, the less that people are willing to unmute themselves and speak up. And that seems to generally be true. So
you've already answered one of my questions. This is Shirley Jackson speaking. I'm not putting on my video because I haven't done my hair today. Anyway, if we were to want to make a donation, is just a general donation to First United the best and say put it where you need it most, or should we specify a program, or should we specify we want this to go to the new building, or what? I mean, it's not going to be a big donation. It's just, you know, how should we direct it?
Thank you so much for that question. This is not these are designed to be information sharing sessions, and so we didn't have an ask attached to these Toast Talks, but for anybody who wants to make a donation, obviously unrestricted gifts are charity gold. And so that's always our preference if you're able to give. And also we really work closely with our donors to honor their preferences. And if there are particular programs that you want to support, you're always welcome to note that in your donation. Amanda is going to be sending an email that includes a robust FAQ about redevelopment and about the timing of when we are going to have a capital campaign that will launch this fall with the start of the construction to sort of take us across the finish line for, you know, making sure we have the resources we need. And so you'll get a follow-up email from Amanda about that. But thank you for your question, Shirley.
Thank you.
Okay, Kathy Booth has a question. I'm wondering about how we can follow up best with our congregations regarding our plans. Will they be online? So we're always open to either Amanda or me or some combination of our capital campaign cabinet that's been involved with helping us plan our capital campaign. We're always willing to come and speak to congregations. It's become infinitely easier with this digital world that we're living in, where we can join, you know, a session or board meeting by Zoom in the evenings or do a coffee hour. I've done a few coffee hours after Sunday worship. And so, you know, we're always welcome. We're always like thrilled to come and meet with our communities of faith across the Lower Mainland. And Amanda's just noted that this session is also taped and it'll be on our website. And that in the fall, we'll have specific outreach to communities of faith that will be circulating. And so just stay tuned for that. Any other questions? All right, well, hearing none, thank you so much for your time. We had promised to keep this session to 45 minutes and we're just a couple minutes under time. And so we're so grateful for your participation this morning. I hope everybody stays safe in the really hot weather that is going to be descending upon us in the next day or so. Drink lots of water and stay cool as you can. And, you know, we just thank you so much for your interest in supporting us and keeping us in your thoughts and prayers. If you have any outstanding questions, Amanda has put her email address into the chat. It's aburrows@firstunited.ca. So thank you so much, everybody, and we'll hope to see you soon. Bye.